The morning sun shimmered over the quiet Texas town of Rockville as the Iron Brothers Motorcycle Club gathered outside their favorite roadside diner. The sound of laughter and engines filled the air as the bikers prepared for their annual charity ride, an event that raised money for local veterans and children's hospitals. It was a tradition they had proudly upheld for years, and everyone was in high spirits. Mark "Hammer" Dawson, the club's leader, was checking his Harley's tires while joking around with his brothers. None of them knew that this ordinary morning was about to turn into something unforgettable. Just as Mark swung his leg over his bike, a small voice pierced through the rumble of engines. "Wait, don't start your bikes." A little girl came running across the street barefoot, her hair messy and her eyes wide with fear. The bikers froze, surprised by the urgency in her tone. Mark immediately killed his ignition and motioned for the others to stop. The roar of the engines faded into an uneasy silence as everyone turned their attention to the child. The girl looked about 7 years old, wearing a faded pink dress and clutching a worn-out stuffed bunny. She was trembling but determined. Mark stepped forward, kneeling to her level so he wouldn't scare her. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said gently. "What's wrong? Why shouldn't we start our bikes?" Tears welled up in the little girl's eyes as she pointed toward the row of motorcycles. "There's something under them," she whispered. "A man came last night. He was putting shiny things under the bikes. I think they're bad things." Mark's expression hardened instantly. His instincts, honed from years of rough living, told him this wasn't a joke. He looked at his brothers and signaled for them to check. One by one, the bikers crouched down beside their bikes, searching beneath the chrome frames and engines. Within seconds, a tense murmur spread through the group. "Boss!" one of the bikers called out, his voice shaky. "You better take a look at this." Mark knelt beside his Harley and saw it. A small metal cylinder wrapped in black tape with wires running from its top. His stomach dropped. "Everyone step back," he shouted. "Nobody touch anything." The bikers quickly backed away, forming a perimeter around the bikes. Mark grabbed his phone and called the police, explaining the situation in short, urgent bursts. Within minutes, sirens echoed in the distance. The little girl stood beside him, clutching his arm tightly, her lip trembling. When the police arrived, they cordoned off the area and called in the bomb squad. The bikers watched in stunned silence as technicians carefully examined the devices. Mark looked down at the girl and said softly, "You saved our lives, kiddo." The child didn't smile. She just nodded, eyes still locked on the row of bikes. "I just didn't want anyone to get hurt," she whispered. And in that moment, the Iron Brothers realized that courage sometimes came in the smallest, most unexpected forms. The scene outside the diner turned chaotic as police vehicles, fire trucks and bomb squad vans lined the street. Yellow tape surrounded the area where the Iron Brothers motorcycles stood silent and still. The bikers, tough men who had faced bar fights, long roads and rough weather, now stood completely still, their faces pale. They weren't used to fear, but what they'd just found was enough to shake anyone. Mark "Hammer" Dawson paced back and forth, watching the bomb squad experts kneel beside the bikes in full protective suits. The little girl, whose name they learned was Sophie, sat on the diner's porch, wrapped in a police blanket and sipping hot chocolate one of the officers had brought her. Despite her small frame, she looked oddly calm, though her eyes darted every time she heard the word explosive. One of the officers, Sergeant Walker, approached Mark. "You did the right thing calling us immediately," he said. "Those weren't just dummy devices. They were live explosives, rigged to detonate when the engines started." Mark's jaw tightened. "So if we'd revved up our bikes like usual..." Walker nodded grimly. "It would have taken out everyone within 50 feet. Your whole crew, the diner, maybe even that gas station across the road." Mark's fists clenched at his sides. He turned to look at Sophie, who was now talking quietly to another officer. His heart twisted. "She saved all of us," he muttered. Later, the bikers gathered around as the police gently questioned Sophie. Her small voice trembled as she explained, "Last night I couldn't sleep. I saw a man outside. He was wearing a jacket with fire on the back, and he was putting something shiny under the bikes. I thought maybe he was fixing them, but then he laughed. A scary laugh? Mark's eyes darkened. That description, flames on the jacket, sounded familiar. It matched a rival biker club known as the Devil's Reapers, a group that had been feuding with the Iron Brothers for months. You think it's them? Mark asked Walker. Looks that way, the sergeant replied. We've had reports of them causing trouble up north. This could be their way of sending a message. As the bomb squad safely removed the explosives, the bikers stood in silence. Every single one of them realized just how close they had come to tragedy. Mark couldn't shake the thought that if Sophie hadn't shown up when she did, they'd all be gone, and innocent people nearby would have been caught in the blast too. When the police were done, Walker walked over and said, "We'll need to keep your bikes for evidence. But you and your men, well, you owe that little girl your lives." Mark nodded. "Yeah, we do. And we're not going to forget it." That night, the Iron Brothers sat together at the diner, shaken but grateful. Sophie had gone home with her mother, escorted by police officers. The bikers silently raised their coffee cups in her honor. None of them said it out loud, but they all knew this little girl had become their guardian angel. The next morning, the town of Rockville woke up to headlines that spread like wildfire. Little girl saves biker club from bomb attack. News crews lined the streets, and the diner where it all happened was buzzing with reporters, flashing cameras, and curious locals. The Iron Brothers weren't used to this kind of attention. They were rough men who lived for the open road, not the spotlight. But today was different. Today, they weren't being judged by their leather jackets or roaring bikes. They were being recognized for surviving something tragic, thanks to a little girl's bravery. Mark Hammer Dawson stood near the diner entrance, giving short interviews while keeping an eye on Sophie, who sat on the diner steps with her mother. She looked overwhelmed by the attention, holding her stuffed bunny close. Mark walked over, crouched down beside her, and said, "You okay, sweetheart?" She nodded shyly. "I didn't think I did something big," she said softly. "I just didn't want anyone to get hurt." Mark smiled gently. "That's what heroes say, you know." By afternoon, the mayor of Rockville and the police chief arrived to officially thank Sophie. In front of the townspeople, the mayor handed her a small medal and declared, "This brave young girl saved lives by speaking up when it mattered most. Courage has no age." The crowd applauded as Sophie blushed, trying to hide behind her bunny, but the Iron Brothers had their own way of showing gratitude. A week later, they organized a surprise event at the local park. Hundreds of people gathered, bikers from all across Texas, families, veterans, and townsfolk. A stage was set up with banners reading, "Ride for Sophie, the Little Guardian." When Sophie arrived, she gasped. Lined up before her were over 50 gleaming motorcycles, all polished and decorated with pink ribbons. Mark took the microphone and said, "There's a saying in our world, bikers protect their own, and from now on, Sophie is one of us." The crowd erupted in cheers. He motioned for her to come forward, then handed her a small pink helmet with her name written in silver letters. The Iron Brothers logo, a pair of wings, was painted on the back. "This is for you, little sister," Mark said. "You reminded us what real courage looks like." With help from Mark, Sophie climbed onto his Harley. He started the engine, the deep rumble filling the air, and the crowd cheered louder. Dozens of bikers followed behind as they rode slowly through town in a special honor ride for her. People waved American flags, kids shouted Sophie's name, and cameras flashed everywhere. But Sophie just smiled and waved, her little pink helmet shining under the sun. From that day forward, the Iron Brothers called her their guardian angel on wheels. And every year, on the anniversary of that day, they held a charity ride in her name, a ride not just for courage, but for hope, kindness, and the reminder that even the smallest voice can save the loudest hearts.